Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source of black news, black views, and black opinions. Today is Thursday, April 7th. I'm Mimi Brown.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, the first black woman has been confirmed to the Supreme Court. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson was confirmed by the Senate today by a vote of 53 to 47. We break down what this means for the black community and for black women. Meanwhile, the officer who killed Amir Locke during a no-knock warrant raid will not face any charges after Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison determined there was not enough evidence to charge Minneapolis police. Then, did Justice Clarence Thomas's wife help former President Trump overturn the 2020 election results? A new bill it might help force the Supreme Court to adopt a code of ethics.
After intense negotiations, a replacement for Kanye West's Coachella has been finalized. Now, how big of a bag is the new headliner requesting for his performance? We'll let you know. And Will Smith has already resigned from the Academy, but will he face more punishment for Slapgate? We'll have the details next right here on Fox Soul's Black Report. But right now, we got to let you know it's our voice and our truth. So let's get it.
We start with breaking news. History was made in Washington, D.C. today. The U.S. Supreme Court will have its first African-American woman justice.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47, and this nomination is confirmed.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson was confirmed by the Senate today by a vote of 53 to 47. All Democrats and 3 Republicans voted to confirm Jackson. She won't take her place on the High Court until June or July. That's when Justice Stephen Breyer officially retires. To discuss this historical day is Bree Maxwell. She's a Democratic strategist and CEO of Indigo Consulting. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So how important is a day like today? This country just confirmed its first black woman to the Supreme Court.
So this is a very important moment, and it's also a moment of joy, not only joy for representation for young black girls, but it's also a moment of representation for the country, because it shows you that black women are highly qualified, black women are highly intelligent, and black women can get the job done. So it's finally time that America is keeping its promise by making sure that we have representation at all levels. And as I told people earlier today, not only does the road to the White House lead through South Carolina, but the road to the Supreme Court also goes through South Carolina, because it was in South Carolina where Joe Biden made the promise that he will make sure that he nominates a black woman to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. You know, since the 80s, people who go before the Senate Judiciary Committee, they've been grilled, sometimes brutally. But what made Judge Jackson's confirmation different than the other ones we may have seen in the past?
Well, hers were different because they were trying to find things on her that was just atrocious. And these were things that they couldn't find on her that to make her, nomination not happen. So they were trying to come at her about being soft on crime. They were trying to come at her about how she handled child sex cases in the past. But we also know that she was law enforcement officers and law enforcement groups have showed support for her. And we also know that prior judges have showed support for her. So they were going on a witch hunt. So senators were going on a witch hunt to find things wrong with her, and they couldn't find anything.
Absolutely. We all agree here on Fox Soul's Black Report that they were definitely digging to find something. Now, Republicans in the Senate say the confirmation hearings for Judge Jackson, that it's a warning shot for President Biden's future picks for the High Court. Now, they say if they take over the Senate after the midterm elections, that Biden must send them a more moderate jurist in order for the person to be confirmed. Now, do you think that it's possible for the president to nominate someone to the GOP that the GOP likes, and still get for Democrats to still support that nominee?
Yes, I do believe that can happen. People can walk and chew gum at the same time. And in a lot of instances, Republicans literally need to get off their high horses and stop thinking that everything has to go in their favor. So I do believe that the president can nominate a moderate to the Supreme Court or any court in the land, for that matter, because it's important. It's important to have a balance. You don't want a court that's too much on one side, as we have seen with the Donald Trump presidency, of having too many of the same justices and nothing getting done. So it's important that we have that balance.
You know, it's very important that we have that balance, and Jackson was able to convince 3 Republicans to vote for her confirmation. We know that Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitt Romney, they all cast their vote in favor of Jackson. But do you think Democrats can get all 3 of these judges to support something like a voting rights bill?
You know, I don't know, because the fact of the matter is we have to wait and see. At a situation like this, it's time that we just wait and see, and we just let the court and the time play out. I think she can, based upon the way that the country is going right now. But I believe right now we have to just wait and see what happens and allow her to get into her rightful position and be able to get the job done.
You know, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about this role. What can she make happen with this role? You know, the Supreme Court is currently dominated by conservatives, and her role, some people are saying, is just symbolic. So how can she use this role to cement her place on the Supreme Court?
Well, we all know that Supreme Court cases aren't just like your average cases that we see back in your states or your local courthouse. We know that the cases that go to the Supreme Court are cases that's going to hold precedence for the country. So say, for instance, if abortion comes back up, she can vote on the side of making sure that women can have abortion, so that we can make sure that women continue to be able to have abortions for whatever reason they want to have it going forward, to make sure that women are able to afford birth control, even voting rights issues, things of that nature. So her opinions will make a difference from now until the time that she is no longer on the Supreme Court. So she will have a rightful place there, and she will be able to get the job done.
Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned this earlier. The president kept his promise by picking a black woman as his running mate, and now for the high court. What else, though, does he need to do to make sure Democrats get out a higher than normal black turnout for the midterms coming up?
Just making sure that we are investing in black communities, and not just going to black communities when it's election time. We need to make sure that, you know, reparations or some form of reparations are being worked on, because that's one thing that some of our communities are looking for. Voting rights. We need to make sure that voting rights is being worked on. We need to make sure that black women are not dying in childbirth as they have been doing in the past. We need to make sure that there's a better access to health care in this country. We need to make sure that there's affordable and equitable housing in this country as well. So those are some things that Biden has made a promise to America too, and we can make sure that he is fulfilling those promises to make sure that we can restore the trust and the faith and the loyalty in the black community when it comes to our politicians.
Well, Bree Maxwell, we want to thank you for joining us today. You are a Democratic strategist and CEO of Indigo Consulting. We would love to have you back. Thanks again.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely great conversation. The officer who killed Amir Locke during a no-knock warrant raid will not face charges. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison said there was not enough evidence to charge Minneapolis police officer Mark Henneman. Ellison made the decision with Hennepin County attorney. Now, Henneman shot Locke 3 times after SWAT team entered the apartment where he was sleeping on the couch. Locke was not the subject of the warrant. Locke's mother, Karen Wells, says her son's death was unfair and added that she would not give up getting justice for her son. Ellison was the attorney general that put together the legal team that prosecuted the officers in the George Floyd murder. You know, I think about Breonna Taylor, how we will forever be saying her name, because I just don't know if there will ever be justice for her. Here's another situation where we want to get rid of the no-knock warrant. I know, to me, I feel like it's in place to protect the police department, but what about those on the other side of the door when it's the wrong person, when it's not handled right? This is what we got to fix, because this is happening way too often.
You know, I was looking on Twitter, Romeo, and that there's a lot of people that are talking to Ellison, that are tweeting him, and a lot of people are also tweeting and adding, not in a nice way at all, Jacob Frey, who is the mayor of Minneapolis, and they're saying, look, this blood is on your hands at the end of the day, and so you, as a mayor, need to know, and everyone actually in Minneapolis, the police department, all need to know that the black community will not have any trust in you. And so when we come to midterm elections, when we come to presidential elections, local elections, you need the black community. President Biden, he says that he cannot do this without the black community, and you need the black community on your side. And when you make the wrong decision and you just demolish our trust in you, hopefully they keep this in mind, why we don't want to vote for certain people to have them in office.
Agreed.
You know, absolutely right. And, you know, much was made about the gun that he had when they entered. But his mother held a press conference with Attorney Brent Crump and Reverend Al Sharpton, and she addressed that. And she said that, you know, he had the gun because he was a food delivery driver, and he had it for his safety, you know. And so, and it was legal. And she also made the point that the Second Amendment right doesn't always apply to us, right? Because there's no reason why someone shouldn't be able to defend themselves when someone is entering their house in the middle of the night, you know? And then there's a new law. I want to make this point really quick. There's a new law that goes into effect tomorrow, and it is it will be in response to what happened with Amir Locke, and it will require officers to wait a minimum of 20 seconds before entering after they knock and announce themselves. Now, I got to thinking, 20 seconds after you knock and you announce yourself, what if you are in the bathroom? Can you really, you know, get to the door in 20 seconds, right? Or think about Breonna Taylor. She was asleep in the middle of the night. 20 seconds is still not long ago to kind of wake up, get your bearings, and know that, you know, someone is at your door. So, you know, I don't think that they're really thinking and having the right response to what happened to this young man.
You know, it's a lot of lies as well that's going on. So maybe you're absolutely right. They're not thinking. It's just react. And honestly, no one wants to have the actual blood on their hands. And so there's just lies upon lies upon lies. And you're right. They're not thinking at all. Everyone just wants to be the person that didn't, you know, cause this death here. But at the end of the day, his mother is like, you know what? His body is going to haunt so many people. And this case is going to haunt you. And they're going to have to sit with that spirit knowing what they did.
Someone has to take responsibility, and it's close to 20,000 no-knock warrants a year. So if this continues, if they don't resolve this situation, what's going to happen in the future?
Good point, Romeo. Democratic lawmakers unveiling a bill that would force the Supreme Court to adopt a code of ethics. Those standards would include recusal requirements for justices that have financial or personal ties to cases that come before the court. The bill was put together in response to revelations that Justice Clarence Thomas's wife was helping former President Trump overturn the 2020 election results. Judge Thomas has refused to recuse himself from election cases. He was the lone dissenter in the court's 8-1 decision granting the House access to White House records wanted by the January 6th committee.
Speaking of the January 6th committee, Ivanka Trump testified before the panel yesterday. She answered questions yesterday via video teleconference, and the committee chairman says that her testimony was helpful and that her decision to cooperate is a significant development for the committee. Ivanka was with her father, former President Donald Trump, on the day of the attacks. Her testimony will remain private, but public hearings on the committee's findings are expected to begin this summer.
A federal judge has acquitted a New Mexico man of charges related to last year's Capitol riot. Matthew Martin claims he thought police allowed him into an entrance near the Capitol Rotunda. Now, prosecutors argue that broken windows and blaring alarms should have alerted Martin that he did not have permission to enter. The ruling is a blow to the Justice Department. It's likely to elevate similar defense from other members of the mob who claim they didn't know they were not allowed inside. Martin is the third Capitol riot defendant whose case has been resolved by a trial, but he's the first one of 3 to be acquitted of all charges.
And House Democrats calling on big oil executives to explain why Americans are feeling pain at the pump. But heads of energy companies like BP, Chevron, Exxon, Shell are passing the blame, saying Russia is partly responsible for the spike in prices.
As people shell out more money for gas, the heads of 6 oil companies remain adamant that the prices at the pump are largely out of their hands.
The price of oil, gasoline, and other refined products are driven by international markets. Energy markets are complex and global in nature.
Airing their frustrations to the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, oil executives are laying the blame on several other factors, including supply constraints.
A labor shortage due to 3 downturns in 12 years, shortages of drilling rigs, frac fleets, frac sand, steel pipe, and other equipment and materials, and the need for pipelines and LNG facilities.
And the federal government.
The Interior Department should end its pause on federal oil and gas leasing, especially in the Gulf of Mexico, which is among the lowest greenhouse gas intensive productions in the world.
At a time when gas prices have become a political flashpoint, Democrats are accusing big oil of looking out for their shareholders rather than the American people.
Do you think that you should be treated separately and get the kind of tax breaks that you're getting now, even when the profits are high?
I think, and what we advocate for is a level playing field.
Republicans say the real problem is the president's policies.
There is a way to produce more American energy. There is a way to be able to bring prices down. They're just not willing to do it.
Democrats are calling on oil executives to ramp up production while working towards clean energy, a balance that industry heads say they're also trying to strike.
And the United States is on the brink of a retirement crisis. That means big changes could be coming to your 401k. The new bill is expected to reach President Biden's office by the end of the year, and it could require most employer-sponsored retirement plans to automatically register their workers. Now, this plan, it would make it easier for student loan borrowers to pay off their student loan debt while saving. It would also delay mandatory withdrawals and limit tax penalties. Now, under the plan, companies that offer a 401k plan would be required to allow part-time employees to contribute. Now, tax credits will also be extended to small businesses.
A new Florida law could require employers to rethink their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Last month, the state legislature approved the so-called Woke Act. The bill restricts how workplaces and classrooms around the state handle discussions about race, gender, and discrimination. Critics say Governor DeSantis' fight against critical race theory may now impact hiring practices. DeSantis, who is expected to sign the bill soon, says the legislation will protect Florida workers against a hostile work environment created by large corporations. One measure in the bill would prevent companies from requiring diversity training as a condition of employment.
And Georgia Republicans passing a bill that empowers state authorities to investigate election crimes and voter fraud. Critics say this is the latest GOP effort to undermine faith in the election process. The Criminal Record Responsibility Act passed along party lines yesterday in the Georgia House and Senate. The bill gives the Georgia Bureau of Investigations wide latitude to investigate allegations of voter fraud. The bill now heads to the desk of Governor Brian Kemp, who signed a strict election law last year.
And in other Georgia election news, gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams trails her Republican rivals in early polls. Now, the Hill Emerson College poll has Governor Brian Kemp leading Abrams 51-44. Abrams, however, trails former Senator David Perdue 49-44. Abrams lost the governor's race to Kemp by 1.5% of only 55,000 votes. Now, political analysts say that Kemp is a rather weak incumbent. Only 42% of voters in the state approve of the job that he's doing.
An Alabama prosecutor says race may have been a factor in the murder of a man who was beaten to death with a shovel last week. During a bond hearing Monday, the prosecutor told a judge that Morgan Barnhill killed Etienne Murray because he thought Murray stole something from him. Investigators say Barnhill beat Murray with a shovel and pipe and then left his body for hours before calling the cops. Police say Barnhill told them he stopped the burglary, but investigators say the story unraveled and he confessed to the murder. Barnhill's bond has been set for $500,000.
A Minnesota woman is agreeing to repay $120,000 she collected in an online fundraiser in honor of Philando Castile. The woman was supposed to use the money to pay off lunch debts owed to public school kids. Prosecutors, they reached a settlement with Pamela Fergus, who they say raised a total of $200,000, but only $80,000 was actually donated to the St. Paul school system to pay off the debts. She did it in the name of Philando Castile, who was killed in 2016 by Minnesota cops during a traffic stop. Fergus was a psychology professor at a university in St. Paul. She has 2 years to repay the money.
Atlanta's mayor is creating a task force to combat his city's crime wave. Andre Dickens and the city's police department have announced plans to create a repeat offender tracking unit. Now, multiple agencies will be used to find people who repeatedly commit crimes. Police officials say 30% of the arrests made by Atlanta police are of men and women they've arrested and convicted at least 3 times. But some community advocates aren't sure this new unit will make a difference. They say only the jail numbers will rise, but it's going to create a task. If you create this task force, it won't do anything to the root cause of the crime in the city.